I have repeatedly told y'all how black folks are being targeted by Republicans in North Carolina, especially now that they have a veto-proof majority in the legislature. Well, Anita Earls, who sits on the North Carolina Supreme Court, she spoke about diversity and why she supports it. She also has been criticized talking about the racial and gender biases within the North Carolina state court system. Well, as a result, folks have been targeting her in a major way. Now, she is the only black justice on the court. Remember, Sherry Beasley was the chief justice, but she lost by 400 votes. Earls is now suing to stop an investigation of her comments, saying it violates her First Amendment rights, and claims she was accused of violating a rule for judges against impugning the integrity of the courts. The identity of the person who initiated the investigation into Earls is officially a secret. But state Democrats believe that Supreme Court Chief Justice Paul Newby, a Republican, is the one who pushed for the investigation. A coalition comprised of NAACP, the Advancement Project, and 14 other civil rights organizations are calling on the North Carolina Judicial Standards Commission to drop its investigation into Justice Earls and instead turn its attention to addressing the critical issues she raised about racial bias and the lack of representation within the state's court system. Judith Brown Diane is the executive director of the Advancement Project National Office. Joining me now from D.C. Judith, glad to have you here. What this simply is, and I keep saying this, is a continued assault on black people by white conservative Republicans in North Carolina.
That's right. I mean, this is nothing new, right? And this is, again, someone who, a black woman, she's the third black woman in the 205 years that court has existed, who is a civil rights lawyer. And when I say civil rights lawyer, this sister's like, her work runs deep. She's the person who did redistricting cases as a lawyer in the state of North Carolina. She worked at the Department of Justice, Civil Rights Division. She worked at the Lawyers Committee. She worked at Advancement Project. So she started a civil rights organization, the Southern Coalition for Social Justice in the state of North Carolina. And so they know what they're up against. They're up against a woman who was elected to sit on the Supreme Court and who is has justice in her heart and is not going to sit back and let that court be a court for whites only. And so they're going after her because they know she's the progressive on the court.
Well, what this also, again, is for them the cementing of power. And this Chief Justice, this white conservative male, he was actually pissed when Sherry Beasley was chosen. He felt he should have gotten the job. And that's why he ran against her. And then, of course, he beat her. Democrats could have had a 6-1 majority on the court. He beats her. It's 4-3 in 2022. They run again. Democrat loses, and then the court flips. And then they immediately begin they actually overturn 3 decisions at the previous Democratic court made. And so this is about flexing political power.
That's right. That point alone is crazy. Like, I've been practicing law for a few years. I won't say how many decades, but like the idea that you get a new Chief Justice and they're going to rehear cases that they have already decided, right? And they picked particular cases. They picked cases that were political issues, right? They want to hear about abortion again. They want to hear about redistricting again. So this is a political move. And we need to put this in perspective, right? Which is, there's a larger, which you have called out, right? Is the power grab that is happening, right? So this is happening in the courts. It's happening in the state legislatures, that we can elect people of our choice. We can get them seated. They can make policy decisions and court decisions that they should be making in the name of justice. And instead, what happens is these Republicans come in and they do a power grab and they say, you know what? So what, you elected those people? We don't care. We're going to overrule that. We're going to take up this law. We're going to get rid of that law with preemption, et cetera. And so we need to understand that this power grab that is happening is real, and it is happening in every branch of government. And North Carolina and Florida are places that are ground zero on these issues.
This is the thing that what I keep saying to black voters in North Carolina. You can't sit at home.
That's right.
You've got a deranged lieutenant governor who's black, a Republican. Crazy people will say his ass crazy, okay? You've got these Republicans in the legislature doing all they can to screw over black people as well. And if you are black in North Carolina, I don't see how you can sit out an election when these people are targeting black people. It's not even covert, it's overt.
Right. And we downplay the courts, right? We downplay the elections of judges, right? Because everybody worries about presidential election, congressional elections, but judges matter. All of the issues we care about are going before these courts, and these right-wing courts are getting rid of protections, civil rights protections that we thought we would always have, because we fought for them, we bled for them, we died for them, but they are rolling back the clock, and they're using the courts and the state legislatures as their tools. And so we cannot sit back, right? People in North Carolina need to know who Anita Earls is, need to know that she ran, need to know that she won that position, right? And that when the elections come up for Supreme Court justices, you can't sit at home because you only care about who becomes president. You need to be turning out for these elections because judges matter.
Well, and also what these people are going to do, remember, they may very well allow racial gerrymandering. This court.
That's right. I mean, this is right. These cases come before a Supreme Court at the state level. And so they get to lock in, and they're partisan judges. And they decided to go with partisan judges. And so they lock in power for decades. It ain't just 10 years, 5 years, it's decades worth of power when these redistricting cases go before them. And so it's all on the line, folks. You know, like they are coming at us from every branch of government with everything that they can to turn back the clock. And so we have to be vigilant, and we can't sit at home. There's no way. There's no way we should be sitting at home for no election anytime soon.
I want to bring in my panel right now, Dr. Julian Malvo, President Emerita, been at college also, an economist, joining us from D.C., Dr. Amakongo Dabinga, Senior Professor, Lecturer, School of International Service, American University, Washington, D.C. You know, on that point, Julian, you were there. Again, Ben is there in North Carolina, and listen, black women in North Carolina should be pissed off right now. What they are doing to this sister is shameful, because she dared complain about the lack of diversity in the judicial system. Oh my God! Oh, I really hurt some feelings on that one. I mean, this is the continual attack on diversity, equity, inclusion, multiculturalism. How dare you bring these things up? We want to get rid of you.
Roland, I tell people often I served time in North Carolina. I love my time at Bennett, but North Carolina is an interesting state. It's not purple. You know, we'd like to think of it as purple, and they have elected some good Democrats, but the Southern conservatism is riddled through the legislature there. Congresswoman Alma Adams was on Bennett's faculty, and when the Republicans took the ledge back from the Democrats, they took that sister and put her like in a closet. She'd had a nice big old, put her in a closet. They decided to divide offices not by seniority, as is usually done, but by some other matrix that nobody could figure out. I'm not surprised at anything that happens in North Carolina, but as you said, every black woman in North Carolina ought to be totally pissed off. And beyond that, any black woman in North Carolina who stays home, there ought to be a reckoning. We cannot afford to stay home. Everything is being decided such slim margins that when you stay home, you're basically giving somebody else your power. This sister on the court was doing a good job. What is the problem? This white boy is just upset because she had the nerve to open her mouth. Well, I'm glad that she's suing for her First Amendment rights because she has a right to her opinion. She didn't go to the legislature and say the court is biased. And what she's saying is that there's an imbalance of power and there's little diversity. Who can argue with that?
Congo, the thing that I keep trying to say to folk, you can't just sit here and get pissed off and be mad and say stuff on social media. You can't just post all different sort of comments or whatever. The way to beat them is at the ballot box. And when you look at the numbers, I mean, bottom line is, if black folks had turned out, and frankly, Sheriff Beasley had not listened to her white consultants, okay, she could be the United States Senator. And so this is how you beat them. You defeat them at the ballot box.
And this is something that you've also always said on your show, is the importance of us not channeling all our funds and resources towards like the DNC, but supporting local organizations on the ground that are doing the work to get this information out. When we see what's happening in North Carolina, as it has been said earlier, this is something that's happening all across the country. And it's happening in the judicial system. It's happening with our legislators as well. Look at what Ron DeSantis did, getting rid of suspending 20 plus legislators at different levels there. And so when it comes down to it, we have to continue to mobilize. But I think it's also important that we also make sure that we're speaking to what's happening to white folks in North Carolina as well, because in too many instances, we are seeing that they always start with black people. And when they see that other folks are not coalescing around them, they come for other people. That's how in the educational sense in Florida, they lost AP psychology. That's how in Roe v. Wade, they came after black issues. And now it's like, let's go after these rights as well. They never stop. And at what point do people who live in these districts who realize that these judges, these senators, these Congress people, they're not serving them anything. They're not doing anything to build their own communities. They only believe in the politics of power, and they're not doing anything empowering for their constituents. And if just being able to silence black people is enough for these folks, then that's all they're going to take. And so I really think at the end of the day, the fact that you're bringing this up, I don't hear anybody in all of these other news networks talking about North Carolina. But the last thing I will say is that these guys are all following Trump's example. Trump has made it clear that if he comes back in, he is going to be an autocrat. And people are feeling at every level they can start doing the same thing and start talking the same talk because they know that they got somebody at the top who's going to support them. And we have to counter that as well.
See, this here for me, Judith, and I guess what angers me, and I hear this right now, I hear people going, oh, I'm just not motivated to vote. Are you paying attention?
Right.
Are you paying attention to North Carolina, to Georgia, to Arkansas, the burning of books, Florida, Mississippi, Texas, what happened in Tennessee? There is no way in hell anybody watching or listening should even utter the phrase, I'm not motivated to vote, when you have a political party that literally has black people in their bull's eye and they are going after everything. That to me is insanity.
That's right. Roland, it's all on the line right now. I will say that being a civil rights lawyer for as long as I've been, I actually didn't think that we would get here, right? Like, I actually did not think that the turn back on Roe v. Wade, I knew they were always coming for it, but I didn't think that they'd actually get there, right? The rollbacks on affirmative action, the anti-woke movement, the book bans, it's all on the table. Right? It is the erasure of Black people and our history. It is the erasure and attacks on LGBTQ family members. It is the degradation of our very existence. They are coming for us. And if we don't understand that, because they understand what the change in demographics of America means for them, that those who are in power feel like we are losing power. And so they got to step up and take everything from us. And so this is our moment to either be complicit by sitting home or to step up and be involved. And that does mean working with groups on the ground. Like I want to shout out the North Carolina Black Alliance, who the national organizations are working with, or if it's working with the national organizations. We don't have time to sit home, people. This is not the moment. The rising crime narrative, who are they coming for? Who are they saying are the criminals? Our children, who they're saying again are super predators. So they're after us. And so we've got to be ready to stand up, to fight, to go to the ballot box. But remember that it doesn't end on election day, that our work has got to be 365.
So here's why I will have to take exception, Judith. They told you they were coming after Roe v. Wade.
I know, but I'm saying I didn't think.
But
just was
I did. Listen, okay, when they tell you we doing something, I'm like, believe them, which means...
And they have the money, Roland. This is the other thing, is that they have the money, right? So what happened, Roe v. Wade wasn't overturned because of one case. Affirmative action wasn't overturned because of one case, but they have strategically chipped away year after year at these protections. The Voting Rights Act, year after year, they've brought redistricting cases. And so this is a conspiracy, people, right? This is intentional. They have the money. The Ed Blums of the world who are attacking affirmative action on every level, they have the money and they have had a plan that they have been executing for decades. And so I was in La La Land, but I know that this is happening and that we don't have a choice. We have to turn out and that we have to be engaged.
Hey, they're coming. And so anybody out there watching or listening, if Trump wins, they regain the Senate, I don't want to hear nobody black and nobody not black say, I didn't think they were going to go this far. You got Trump out here talking about executing General Milley and targeting the media as well. I believe every crazy thing his ass says, the Republicans will actually let him do it because they crave power. Judith, we appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.